Hello people of YouTube, it's Deephack here, and welcome to the live stream. Hey Stevie B, welcome. I hope you all enjoyed that video. That was tutorial 14 on the Harrier, all about ship operations. So a short takeoff there and a vertical landing, just a bit of fun. And my technique on the vertical landing wasn't even terrible, considering that usually I'm doing that in VR, and it's not easy to do it with a fixed camera position in 2D. So anyway, as usual, I'm just going to do a quick channel update, and then we're moving on to the DCS news once again with dotChuckles. I have one more video to do in this Harrier series, and this is going to be field operations, so it'll be takeoffs and landings at a normal airfield in the Harrier. And then we're moving on to the much anticipated F-16C Viper, which I know a number of you are really excited to see. Car, I liked your last Tarkov stream a lot. Frantic was fun. Yes, it is good fun playing a bit of Tarkov, and I'm going to continue doing that. Usually in between, like during the week, I'll play a bit of Tarkov, and I'll try to stream that when possible. So that's pretty much all there is going on with the channel. So without any further ado, I'm going to call in dotChuckles and say hello, sir.
Hello!
In a cloud of vapour, he joins us for the DCS news.
It's like fucking stars in their eyes, mate. Coming out of the fog.
Oh, that is bringing back memories. Yes, I remember that.
Tonight, Deephack, I'm going to be.
Yes. I was trying to think of some star that would have been back in the day, and nothing came to mind. Anyway,
Meatloaf.
You're going to be Meatloaf. I was going to say Stevie Wonder, but anyway. But what's happening this week in the world of DCS news? We do, of course, have 2.7.
Oh, yes. Lots of news. Lots of news.
Such news. Many news. Wow. So yes, of course, the big thing being the clouds, which are, in fact, positioned behind us right now. That was a big thing that came with 2.7. Looking really good in 2D, but slightly less impressive in VR, as we commented on pre-show.
Yes, slightly gelatinous jelly is kind of how it looks in VR, in my opinion.
Yes, it's not terrible. But it's also nothing like this screenshot that we have here behind us.
No. But it's still an improvement over what we had. So
yes.
I suppose we should be thankful for that the beatings have stopped and we've got some decent clouds. Yes.
The other thing that I have to notice, and I did a stream on 2.7 on Wednesday when it launched, and everybody was like, is my PC going to burn? Is my PC going to melt? And, for me at least, the resounding answer is no. In VR, I noticed no difference, maybe even slightly better performance. Now, that said, I have trawled through the forums a little bit, and there are people complaining about performance. So I think that maybe certain configurations, certain hardware, it's maybe worse for some people. But certainly my experience has been super good.
Yeah. I mean, same for me. There's been I haven't noticed any difference in performance. So I reckon there's been some serious optimization that's gone on to allow these new features to come in and not affect the front end for users. So, I mean, they appear to be aware that clouds aren't quite up to snuff in VR. I mean, I know that there's this jitter issue where they kind of bounce up and down a little in VR, which I can't say I've noticed. I don't think it affects everyone.
I get it.
So
but the reality is that I don't notice it most of the time. But for me, it's there for sure. I do see it.
I'm just sort of keeping an eye on chat here, and Kartova's just made an excellent point here that it's a game changer for World War II and Korea, and I guess early Cold War servers, and it's absolutely right, because line of sight now becomes a real issue. Although if you're flying against AI, it doesn't, because the AI currently ignore the clouds. But for PvP, absolutely. And I mean, we noticed that because we did a little mission the other night and found that it dramatically changed how we approached a target on the ground, because suddenly optics were like, I can't see anything, and IR is having a hard time getting through the cloud. So we could only attack from one direction where there was a hole in the clouds. So yeah, it is absolutely. It's a really valid point that it's changing the way for a more realistic way of how people sort of approach combat. Which, so from that point of view, absolutely great.
Yeah, super good. And I commented on the stream as well when I was testing at 2.7 that for me, the environmental lighting is completely changed with these new clouds. So like, I'm flying through multiple cloud layers. My cockpit is going into and out of shade. I was flying over the desert near Dubai on the Gulf map. And like you could see like a light area of desert and dark areas of desert, and flying into and out of those light and dark areas was really immersive and very, very realistic feeling.
Yeah, and again in the real world, that sort of cloud shadowing, it affects like in the real world, your fidelity of what you can see. From a cockpit, it can become very hard to see something if you're trying to navigate VFR under patchy clouds. Yes. So it's definitely doing that kind of a thing where it's like, shit, where's the airfield? I can see it. You're gonna the sun's come out now. I can see it.
You're going to get a bit of that. And like, I was also noticing that I was having a harder time following the contour of the ground in the darker patches than in the lit up areas. So I would transition to the lit up area and I'd be like, oh wow, there are actually like sandbanks and things here. And in the dark parts, I wasn't noticing them. So if you're flying low level, it could actually make a difference.
And I think as well, the other challenge it sort of brings in that kills pilots in the real world is VMC into IMC.
Yeah.
That suddenly, okay, nice visual flight rules, fine. I'm now in a cloud and now I'm upside down and heading towards the ground at 12,000 feet per minute, which is what happens in the real world. So
biggest killer of VFR qualified pilots.
Absolutely. Yeah,
complete loss of spatial awareness when flying into cloud. And when I was doing my PPL, we trained on that kind of stuff, and I've experienced it IRL, and it's terrifying how quickly you lose it. Like you immediately have to switch from looking out the window to staring at your instruments. Yeah, because unless you stare at them, you're going upside down.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the thing it's not going to simulate that you have in the real world. Was the sympathetic. I can't remember the word. That basically you have a illusion that you are rolling. Yes. When you're not.
Yes.
So if you're a VFR pilot, you instinctively are trying to do what your inner ear is telling you, and what you're actually doing is you're rolling your aircraft inverted.
Yes.
So
but the thing that I always found noticeable, again, this is real world, maybe it translates to VR a little bit, your peripheral vision is very important for maintaining straight and level, because you don't even have to be paying that much attention, but you notice when you're level just from your periphery. That you want blue and brown on the edges of your view.
So the clouds are definitely adding sort of real world problems to DCS flying, which I thoroughly approve of. So,
yes, as do I. Now, we haven't, of course, touched on the propellers, but I haven't flown any World War II aircraft since installing it. I guess the Yak also will have these fancy new propellers, so I should take the Yak up. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah. I mean, I read what they're doing, and I mean, it just blows my mind. My first question was, why?
Yes.
And then I thought, no, because it is going to make it look far more realistic. But I mean, they're tracking the position of each blade effectively in real time.
Yeah.
In order to create the exact, how it would exactly look. And I can't. I mean, I've never flown a complex aircraft, so I can't tell you if I don't know if you get feedback from, how the propeller looks in terms of variable pitch, if that's something that a real world complex aircraft pilot uses.
Well,
so it's just
having flown variable pitch single engine props, I can tell you that you can. Like maybe you can just barely see it. Like it's not something you're really aware of.
So it looks like they've done this just for shits and giggles. But good on them. I mean, there we go. It's a thing, and it's an impressive thing that they've done.
It does look nice.
And yeah, but again, yeah, I'm not a big World War II airframe fan, so. I haven't actually played with it either, but yeah, I mean, I wonder how that affects performance.
Yeah,
I mean, there must be some scary maths going on there, you know.
I would think so. So we have a fairly extensive change log for 2.7, as you might expect, and there's an absolute bunch of stuff here. But what I'd like to do first is just call out a couple of things that I kind of saw at first when I was working my way through it. And it's sometimes it's the silly little things. Mission editor, updated weapons and stores naming. This for me has this is really big. Like I'm sitting on the tarmac and I call the ground crew and I bring up the rearming page, and now I actually know which missile is which, because this is always the big thing with me. Like which Maverick is which one, and now they're labeled like laser, infrared.
Yeah, you no longer have to memorize the nomenclature for things like that. You know, you can. It's written right there for you.
And then you've got slam and harpoon, which the way that the model numbers are written, like I could never remember which one was which. I sometimes had to load it on the plane first and then be like, actually that's the wrong one.
Yeah, and of course I think now, although I've not fully tested it, we've now got full harm implementation, and we've got pre-plan, loft, and all of its modes. So that's like proper seed capabilities now.
Yes, and that seems to be across both the F-18 and the F-16. I don't know if they intend to implement more functionalities, but the other thing they've done is they've overhauled the autopilot of the harm
in the F-8 of the harm, right? Yes. Yeah.
And so supposedly it's now way more intelligent about lofting, about flying at high altitude, about flying at low altitudes. It's supposedly a bit more accurate now, which is pretty damn cool. But yeah, weapon naming, very descriptive names for everything now. Like even like the bombs, they're even telling you, what size of charge is in them, and if they can be laser designated, if they're JDAMs, all that kind of stuff. Super good. Mission editor added ability to place all player client aircraft on the ground without a parking spot. This is something that the Harrier and I think the Viggen, I might be imagining this, but I think the Viggen was able to do it too. They already had this, and now they've said, right, all aircraft can do this now, which I think is great.
Yeah, because there's some airfields where there's like aprons where there's no parking slots.
Yeah, no defined parking spots. This is a big thing in the Caucasus. For some reason, not all the parking spots in the Caucasus are modelled. I think in most of the new maps, they are better modelled.
Yeah, so, it just sort of, like, gives you, I think, better options in sort of building, like, a living airbase and, have things, exactly where you want. I noticed when I was sort of fiddling about with the mission editor that there's now an invisible FARP, which I don't know if that came in a while back and I just didn't notice it.
It actually, I think it originally came in for the Viggen. And it was so that they could have like FARPs at the sides of roads and things like that. Yeah.
So I mean, you can create some cool scenarios with with remote FARPs and things like that. And so all I need to do is just knock off get Blender fired up at some point when I've got time and make a Harrier hide, because there is of course now it's unofficial, but there is a Blender tool that allows you to get your models out of Blender and into DCS.
Very
that
nice.
somebody has been working on, because currently getting a model into DCS is an absolute nightmare. You have to have a very specific version of 3D Studio that also requires a very expensive license. And even though I do video and things like that professionally, I'm not paying for a 3D Studio license.
No,
I'm sorry, but no. C4D and Blender does fine. So yeah, somebody, if I can't get around to it, somebody needs to make a Harrier hide.
Yes, totally. We need those plastic mats and the camo netting and everything.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Other things from the patch notes go.
Yes, new Jester speed awareness callouts during BFM. I've not tried this yet, but this sounds really nice. I like the concept that your backseater is keeping you in check.
Yeah, that's useful.
That's a nice one. There was a bunch of supercarrier stuff. Let me actually just scroll down to the supercarrier bit. Because there was, this changelog is huge. DCS Supercarrier added clickable activation of cut lights and wave off lights for the LSO station. That's really nice. Added departure radio messages. Carrier landing sound improvements. That sounds kind of cool. Removed the request startup from the radio menu. That was kind of a holdover from olden times.
Yeah.
And then it's just a bunch of fixies. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. But I like the fact that they're improving the LSO station and adding more functionality. And of course, at some point, we're going to be getting the Airboss station, which sounds pretty good.
Yeah, Pryfly will be in, and the briefing room, which is that. I mean, the briefing room. That's really cool. As a place to gather before multiplayer missions and things like that. I mean, I don't know what what their features they're planning for that, but it would be nice to, have a screen and get your mission notes up, and you can do the very military thing of death by PowerPoint.
Yes, the things that they have mentioned is that. It's going to be able to display the map, and I guess you'll be able to mark up the map and show it to everybody.
Yeah.
Each person in the briefing room will have a tablet, and from that tablet they can pre-configure certain things about their aircraft. Now, what they've mentioned so far is the loadout. I don't know if in future it might be possible to fiddle with your data cartridge or things like that, but certainly initially at least you'll be able to choose the armament for your aircraft, which is pretty cool.
Right. So we can't have a 2-hour PowerPoint presentation on CRM and you.
Yes, maybe we should. That would be kind of cool. I like where they're going.
Ultimate realism.
Yes, I like where they're going with this. But then I had a rant last week when you weren't here about VoIP. So I love all of this stuff that they're doing, but Eagle implementing VoIP in DCS I think is such an incredible waste of time, because SRS is just. SRS and Discord are what I use, and to my mind, that's all you need.
Yes, but...
This is why I mentioned it, because I wanted an opposing point of view.
Yes, but I agree. What Siri Bob or Curie Bob has done with SRS is fantastic. But he's done it, as far as I'm aware, without access to the SDK, or to the full SDK.
Yeah.
So while the implementation is bare at the moment, I think if ED embrace the level of realism that they do with their aircraft, with their VoIP integration, so, it ties into the radios, it takes into account line of sight, we have jamming, we have, half quick and all the encryption systems and all the right noises and all the right bleeps. I can see it being really valid, and unfortunately it would mean that things like SRS are no longer used, but we might get a more realistic radio environment.
You do make a good point, because of course if Eagle standardize this and they make it part of the SDK that they provide to their third parties, then you could see all aircraft providing functionality, and functionality that can be customized per aircraft. So things like different mic clicks in different aircraft.
Yeah.
different transponder modes and different types of aircraft.
Yeah, I mean, different ways of intercom, like the way that the intercom, like, because the way that, like, the intercom in, like, say, the Strike Eagle, when that comes along, works is different from how the intercom in the F-14 works and things like that. So, yes, I agree to an extent that it seems at the moment to be a, well, why bother, because we've got SRS. You know, I think in the future, though, like, the potential for it could be big, because let's not forget, like, a decade ago, we were using TeamSpeak, and everybody was like, well, why would you do anything else outside of TeamSpeak? It does everything. You know, look, we can enter a keyboard command and change room, just like changing frequency, like, you know, so things develop. So, like, yeah, I mean, no doubt SRS is king right now, and, you know, it is a fabulous implementation, but I think with access to the SDK and all that kind of stuff, what ED are doing with VoIP could become really complex. But it depends. I mean, it just, yeah, it depends what their priorities are, and I don't think it's much of a priority for them. I seem to recollect Matt Wagner talking some time back to another YouTuber in one of his interviews that they wanted to make VoIP a more realistic proposal. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if that's just my brain telling me. Yeah. And I'm imagining it. But so, yes, I take your point, but let's have a look at it where it is in 5 years, you know.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Continuing with the changelog, we have updated a bunch of ground models, I've said here, and I've just scrolled us down to combined arms. Some of these are pretty interesting because some of these are extremely old models. I think some of these the previous versions of these models dated back to like Flanker 2 and so on.
Yeah.
So you've got things like updated buses and things like that, and I think this is excellent. I'm really, really happy to see this because some of these ground models were getting a little bit dated, a little bit weird looking. So it's nice to see combined arms and the ground models getting some love.
Yeah, there's a few things that had like about, you know, sort of 12 polygons and
yes,
some very low textures. You know, it's no, it's good that's getting a bit of love. Yeah.
And I think you shared a video with me before about, actually, let me see if I can bring it up quickly. I'll let you introduce it about the flak.
Oh, we can go downtown.
We can go downtown. Downtown. Yeah. Right, I'm going to change view while I do that, because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to bring up. Going downtown is not a safe search. Let me see.
Yeah. I think I linked it to you.
You did. I've got it actually. So I'll bring this up on the screen just now, and let's have a little
see if we can
at this.
Show people. This is big. So it's a new sort of task that can be assigned to AI anti-aircraft, which basically, like in, you know, over Hanoi and over Baghdad and, you know, sort of early Gulf War, it just basically anti-aircraft opens up and just starts blazing into the sky because they've got no visual targets. So, you know, they're just shooting in the hope that they might hit something. And you couldn't do this before.
Yes.
So, and of course you can set it to trigger off of a trigger zone that when you fly into it, basically AA starts having a go. So, you know, like you can stick this over Damascus, for example, which I think is this example.
It is. This is
here. Yeah. And I forget who it was that initially sort of broke this on YouTube.
I think this is Spudknocker.
Spudknocker, right? Yeah. So this is Spudknocker's video here, and it's really easy to, like, you see, oh crap, you know, you don't want to be getting near that. So, you know, it just adds atmosphere to to sort of flying around over defended targets.
Yes.
So
thank you for that video, Spudknocker. That's a very good, very good example of that.
Yeah, and I think it's Red Kite. He's got a really good tutorial on how to set it up. So there's some great stuff there for mission developers to basically make anti-aircraft feel a little bit more realistic, because
this is something that has, until very recently, been entirely missing from DCS. So, I used to play a lot of Falcon 4, and the anti-aircraft artillery with flak guns and barrage firing of anti-aircraft was something that DCS never had. And it was about 2 updates ago, I can't remember now. They started adding these Cold War era large caliber anti-aircraft guns with the fuses, and now we're getting this functionality. So I'm really happy about this as well. This is adding really nice immersion to the game.
Yeah, because I mean, it reminds me very much going back to sort of the first Gulf War, of seeing aircraft over Baghdad, night vision footage, and just like the sky being a wall of lead. and it's all all these flickering lights in the sky. And now we've got the ability to recreate that. So that's a big deal. That is a big deal.
Yes, indeed. And then the other note that I had was sounds. Actually, this is so massive. They have added so much in 2.7. But if we scroll all the way up here, we have a bunch. Here we go. There's a whole section called sounds, and there's a whole bunch of new sounds. Some of these are pretty good. There was an improvement to the F-16 external sounds, which we noticed the last time we played.
Yes. Yeah, it sounds great. Yeah.
And that was pretty nice. What else have we got here? Rain in the cockpit sounds. New sounds for turboprops, turbo fans, new sound and small dynamic update for the H-27. New missile launch sounds. This is also pretty good as well. So now, I think before missiles kind of just made the one sound, now they have 4 different types with light, medium, heavy, and ejection-based missile launch sounds, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think Frantic noticed when we were flying the other night that there was sort of new mechanical sounds in the F-16 that hadn't been present, or they tweaked the volumes, so like things like the nose gear door banging shut, which obviously is just directly underneath your bum in the aircraft. So I mean, it is apparently audible. So that's there now and all that kind of stuff. So.
I noticed a couple of things in the F-18 which may or may not have already been there, but the afterburner detent and the end of travel on the throttle now make a quite audible sound that I didn't notice before. Some of these little bang and clank sounds that you get in the cockpit are now a bit more noticeable.
there's like a thing now where I don't know if I'm imagining it, but there's like these vents that open up on the F-18. It's like some kind of bypass vent. And it happens at a particular point in the throttle range, and now when I pass it, I think I can hear that. Like I don't know if I'm imagining it or
is this
or
the
if
whine
that's an actual
sound
thing
on the ground?
No, it's in the air as you throttle back. You can kind of hear it. I need to sort of pay a bit closer attention because I could be entirely imagining it, but I hadn't noticed it before, and I was like, what's that noise? And but generally, the sound environment is getting a lot better.
Oh, very much so. Yeah, because in the F-18 there was one that I noticed a lot. I was only really noticing it with the canopy open or externally, but the kind of buzzsaw turbofan sound. I was getting that around about 70% as I was taxiing, and the moment I heard it, I've actually seen Finnish F-18s doing at an air show, and I've been fairly close to them, and I've heard that sound in real life. And so the moment I heard it, I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute! That wasn't there before, and that's very authentic. I've heard that in the real world."
Yeah. I mean, speaking of sounds, the real world thing. Just the other day, I was driving past Lukers. And 2 Typhoons were doing circuits at Lukers, and the sound that made, I actually had to pull over for a moment.
Nice.
It sounded glorious.
I'm glad to hear that Lukers is still doing stuff, because they've been kind of on off for many years.
Well, it's an army barracks now, but I think the Typhoon's still putting an appearance every now and then. So they were doing circuits there.
Nice.
And it sounded glorious. Yeah.
So these were the ones that I kind of noticed in my first pass, but honestly, there's just such a huge amount of stuff in here, and of course, there's a bunch of Harrier stuff which excites me very much. But I've already gone over that the last 2 news shows, so I won't bore people too much with that. And I'm going to do a video on these Harrier changes as well, so that people know what's going on.
I mean, the AT Flare for the F-18.
Yeah.
Much more capable pod, I think, than the Lightning.
You think so?
Well, I think in terms of, its field of view.
Yeah.
Like the ability to sort of get, you can really get quite close in from far out, but it just operates in an entirely different way. So, being used to the Lightning, it was like sitting there going, what am I doing with this? Why isn't it doing that? Well, I know it can do this, but why not? And oh god, yeah,
it's very,
it's a
very
bit
different.
Frustrating.
Yeah,
it's very different. Yeah,
the things that you've learned in the Lightning 2 are not applicable to the AT Flare. It's a completely different workflow for using that pod.
Yeah. But I think you it shall provide much bang.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And supposedly it's the pod that was more used by the Marine Hornets.
Yeah, it was their pod of choice. Yeah. Yeah.
So perhaps
and
more realistic.
I think it was because it gave the F-18 a similar capability to the F-14 in terms of its air-to-air camera work.
Yes, well, this is. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I have noticed that when Wags was demonstrating it, the workflow for displaying an air-to-air contact seemed so good. It was just like boop boop, and you've got an image of what you've locked up on the radar. So yeah, I can see that for sure.
Yeah, the ability to VID a target from a long way away was something that was great in the F-14, and yeah, sort of. No, I think the AT Flare gave the F-18 a similar ability.
Yeah, and coupled autopilot mode. All of us lazy pilots love it.
Yeah, it's like flying a tube liner now. It's just like stick the waypoints into sequence, barrow out, couple.
Yeah.
Sit back, enjoy a cup of tea. Yeah.
Press level change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice and simple.
I know.
And just look at all this. So these are mostly fixies. So many fixies for the F-18. I haven't even read all of this yet. And then the F-16, a smaller one. And it seems to me very much like the F-18 is reaching the end of early access.
Well, this is what they say. Yeah, this is what they say. That Wags was saying that they were hoping to move the F-18 out of early access, which is obviously big news for F-16 fans, because then the remainder of the Hornet team moves on to the F-16. So.
Yes. I'm very excited about that because, again, being a big Falcon 4 fan, I've had a lot of time in the F-16, and it's little things like the DCS implementation of the F-16 is fantastic. The best that there's been, but so many pages in the DED not being implemented, and to most people that's probably super unimportant. But not having the cruise page and things like the little things that I used to use all the time are just not there, and it annoys me.
Well, this sort of moves us into a segue because to talk about an recent interview with Wags, because he mentions in the F-16 that the F-16 launch, he acknowledges that it was a misstep, and I think they scrabbled to get the F-16 up to an acceptable standard that it should have been at. For early access. He's fully acknowledged that the F-16, this was they were under a deadline, and I think it was the first time they'd had this kind of internal deadline, and he acknowledges they messed it up. So there was this scrabble to get the F-16 where it needed to be, and then I think they took the pace off a bit to go and finish the F-18. So now the F-18's finishing up. Now they can apply, probably the man hours, full development team onto the F-16, which means the F-16 should come on at a pace, because the F-18, it progressed really quickly when they got it rolling. It seemed like every patch there was big updates to the F-18. So hopefully we'll start seeing the same for the F-16. Because like you, I'm a big Viper fan. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's
And I also like the F-18, because it's such a versatile and capable aircraft. But let's be honest, which is sexier? We know the F-16 is sexier.
We know the Viper's sexier. Yeah, exactly.
It's a little bit older, it's a little bit clunkier, but it's faster, it's sexier.
Yeah.
And despite those teeny tiny little old-fashioned displays, man, can it do a lot of stuff. It's a true multi-role.
And nobody rescued their dad with an 80s rock soundtrack in an F-18.
True. I remember watching that with you.
Yeah, you'd never seen Iron Eagle.
I had not, and it is gloriously awful, but also
gloriously awful. They made like 4 of them, I think.
Oh, yes,
I know.
Very silly film, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Oh.
So that's pretty much everything I had for the changelog for 2.7.
Yeah. So I guess we could talk about this video from Cosmo TV. If
perhaps you can take the lead on that one, because I've actually not seen it.
Sure. So over on YouTube, Cosmo TV, who is well, I think he's been involved in development with he was involved in the development of the Gazelle as an SME, I think.
Okay.
And he is involved, I believe, with the development of the Kiowa, and is a real world, or was a real world, Apache pilot, and Kiowa pilot. And he had Wags on, and they were just talking about various things. Initially they were sort of talking about the Hind. But what was interesting about the video is that they kind of wandered a little bit in what they were talking about, and the F-16 came up, and how which is where I was sort of talking about, sort of Wags acknowledging that the F-16 didn't look great. But what was interesting was they started talking about combined arms. Now, combined arms has sort of been, to an extent, the unwanted stepchild in DCS. But Wax made some interesting comments in this video, which I would urge everybody to go and after this, not right now, go and watch Cosmo TV's video.
I'll post the link in the show notes after this.
Yeah. Probably good. He's got a really good channel there. If you're a rotor head, it's a good place to be. But yeah, he was talking about sort of future plans with combined arms, and it's really interesting. And what he said is that they worked on an updated damage model for the World War II aircraft, and that is now complete.
Yes, that's now in game.
That's now in game. So the next phase is they're bringing that new damage model, sort of accurate damage model, which seems to take a bit of a nod from games like War Thunder, if anybody's played War Thunder, where it sort of charts the progress of a round going through your airframe and hitting various things and knocking systems offline.
It's something we call terminal ballistics.
Exactly, yeah. So that is then moving to the modern aircraft. So we're going to see much more realistic damage in modern aircraft. But once that's underway, they want to bring it to vehicles. And to combined arms, because they said the thing that was holding combined arms back as being sort of really anything other than sort of, I guess, a bit of a toy, was the damage model in the vehicles. So they want to address that. And then they're sort of talking about implementations of the experience of being in a vehicle. And, he didn't sort of allude much more. But, I mean, to me, that sounds like, well, I don't know. Do you think we could see something like maybe DCS Abrams? Or, is that a possibility? So, I don't know. There's definitely looks like there's some love coming for combined arms.
I'm very happy to hear that, because I've had combined arms since its release. And yes, it's from the very beginning, it's been a bit of a toy. Like, you can't do that much with it. But I could see the potential that it had, and I was really excited to have it, so that in future it might be something worth playing with. And having a good damage model actually is not just important for combined arms, in my opinion, but it's important for all of DCS, because right now we have a kind of points-based hit point system where you need to hit a vehicle with X amount of damage, and that's not at all realistic in the real world. A guy with a 50 cal might get a lucky shot and mobility kill or weapon kill a tank.
And in terms of sort of aircraft, put that in aircraft contents, the phenomenon of the golden BB,
yes
the one round that hits in exactly the right place to basically cause a cascade of failures that takes the aircraft down. And because in tank combat, I mean, okay, modern tank combat, sable rounds and Hesh and things tends to just make tanks turn into cookers. But for other stuff, and perhaps sort of earlier Cold War, I mean, it was more a mobility kill that happened on tanks. You blow a track off, and now that tank is out of action for 3 hours whilst they change the track, or the gearbox gets shredded, or transmission. So it's not that the tank is dead; it's mission ineffective. So being able to sort of simulate all that kind of stuff, I think, is really interesting.
I totally agree. And actually, even with the modern ones, we if you look at kind of after action reports of modern tanks shooting each other, think something like the Challenger 2. I forget exactly how many, but there was a report of a Challenger 2 taking something like 8 or 9 RPG hits. And it's still being up obviously with damage, but so you can see that a points-based hit point system is not going to work for something like that.
Yeah, and the counter to that is that there was an M1A2, I think it was in Afghanistan. It took a single RPG-7 round to the front, and it didn't take it out, but there was a penetration at the driver area.
Oh no!
Very lucky. He was basically injured in the foot, and he wasn't that badly injured, but it was enough to mission kill the tank.
Well, yeah. If your driver is injured, then you're not really going anywhere.
Yeah. Fortunately, there was no fatalities, but the thing is that normally, like an RPG, yes, it is quite a terror. If you shoot down from the top, an RPG-7 can make a mess of even an MBT.
If you get underneath.
Yeah. But that's like a 1 in a million shot.
Yes.
Which we can't simulate that kind of dynamic combat in DCS with this sort of points-based system. So the sort of a good damage modeling coming to combined arms could be great. But like I say, I know I'm making a bit of a leap here, but could we see ground modules in DCS? Because I mean, I would love a T-72 module, or an Abrams module, or having that kind of sort of fidelity. I mean, outside of outside
Steel
of DCS, I play things still. Yeah, I sort of love stuff like that. So it's really exciting that there is sort of some love coming for combined arms. I mean, I know we're very much into our aviation, but I just think it could make DCS a much broader church.
Well, let me ask the chat. Dear chat, what do you think? Tell us. We're monitoring.
Yeah. Let's hear what people think. And the other thing that was holding combined arms back was the maps. And then they went on to talk about maps, because he was saying that the Syria map is so detailed that actually ground combat starts to become possible. And then there was a little interesting thing that he mentioned about the Marianas map the Ugra media are working on. And he was talking sort of in reference to the accuracy with ground combat, that he said in some places this is accurate down to the house.
Yes. Stevie B says that she's all about the planes.
All about the planes.
Yeah.
I don't blame you, but I mean, I think like I say, I think there is potential to bring
Well, for
you know,
multiplayer, just imagine if you could have 10, 20 people on the server, and half of them are in aircraft and half of them are in ground vehicles, you get a very unpredictable, more realistic, more dynamic situation.
Supporting troops on the ground, you know, supporting a mobile infantry that is, you know, manned by players. It's CVB there just saying really widen the appeal. Yeah, but I mean, and I completely agree with that. You know, I think we can bring a whole new element. Because what they were talking about in this video was, could DCS become the next Arma? And I think Wags' opinion was, no, because infantry combat's probably not something that they're going to do. But, you know,
I think
it works in IL-2. Yeah, that's a really good point, because the IL-2 ground module I have, and it does work really well. You know, it's hellishly expensive for some reason, but it is very good. And what they've done simulating the interior of the tanks is is fantastic. But yeah, it's a really good point. It does work really well in IL-2. I hadn't thought about that.
I think Eagle could definitely do vehicles. I very much agree. You know, they're never going to be able to make like an Arma style experience. That's such a different focus they would need to have.
But yeah, anyway, it was a really good video, Cosmo TV, with his chatting with Wags, ostensibly talking about the Hind, but it did take this sort of interesting little route into combined arms, because I guess with the Hind, well, what did the Hind do? It supported troops on the ground,
even transporting.
So exactly. So having that kind of balance between the two, I think would be great. But yeah, it's interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff.
Okay. Well, like I said, I will post the link, and if people want to review that after watching this, that'd be great. I think that's probably everything that we have for this week.
Yeah. I mean, we've got exciting stuff coming in the future that we're not going to talk about. We're just going to tease people.
That's right. I distinctly remember us saying that we were not going to speak about something.
We're not going to speak about something, we're still not going to speak about it. But there's some exciting stuff coming in the future.
Yes, point at the logo.
Yeah. It's up there. You make me do difficult things. There, yes.
Just playing with you.
Stuff to do with that. Exciting things.
Very exciting things. So,
I know, I'm such a tease.
So,
I love it.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank everybody who's been watching, both live and after the fact. You, the viewers, are what make this channel possible. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe, like, and comment. It's that kind of stuff that helps us work the algorithm. And yes, as always, thank you very much for watching. Thank you so much, dotChuckles, for being on the channel with me and going over the DCS news.
It's a pleasure as always.
And I guess the rest of you, I'll see you all next time. Take care, fly safe.